you have to do both of them.
All from what you did.
End it.
I'm hoping that inshallah ta'ala this is a reminder for everybody else that all of us, I'm here for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am not here for any kind of name, fame, or material gain. All of us came here to fulfill our obligation of Salatul Isha as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects from us inshallah. So, mashallah, Shabbat, always down for Kabab. Come closer, inshallah. Come closer. In the back, come, Jordan, come on, can I see you? There's no one behind you. Come closer, inshallah. Come closer. There's some empty space going on over here. Come closer, inshallah. Come closer. See, we find regarding the Sahaba radiallahu anhu ajma'in, that they would sit in such a manner, we find this in Hayat al-Sahaba, that they would sit in such a manner that the birds would come and sit on their heads and shoulders. You know, like that came out like the shampoo brand, not sponsored by them, head and shoulders, but nevertheless, unintentional. Okay, so now we have everyone's attention. Bismillah. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. All praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who gave us everything that we have. I'm intentionally pausing for us to reflect upon, let alone what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. No, we should ask ourselves rather, what didn't Allah bless us with? What didn't He give us? He's the one who gave us our life. He's the one who gave us our iman. He's the one that literally gave us everything that we have in our possession. And He is the only one that's going to give us everything that we have left in our taqdeer and our nasib. Regarding how much time we have left on God's green earth, it is only Allah, as He tells us in the Quran, in one place, إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَّاقُ ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينِ, that it is Allah who is al-Razzaq. It is Allah who is Yuhyi and Yumeet. It is Allah who is the one that grants life and takes away life. It is Allah that allows a person to experience some health issues, illnesses, etc. And then it is Allah alone who is Ash-Shafi. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone who grants cure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Kafi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient. You know, sometimes we have to, I'm digressing for a few milliseconds, but sometimes we have to hear the praise of Allah. Sometimes we also even have to talk about the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the challenge that we live in society in general, it doesn't matter where you live to be honest, is that we're constantly being bombarded by da'wah ila ghayrillah. We're constantly being bombarded by your job is going to give you peace. You're getting the latest phone is going to make you happy, and driving this car. All of this is garbage, baloney. Wallahi, it's fake. Wallahi al-azim, it's fake. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, this is not a topic by the way, this is like the meaty baat, right? Is, baat se baat nikal aati hai. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us again in the Quran, Ala bi-dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub, that all mankind, your contentment of your heart is not found in materialism and status and politics and whatever this fake dunya is calling towards. Wallahi, it's not found in there. Wallahi, it's not found in there. It doesn't matter, you can become the prime minister, you can become the president, you could have literally a 50 vehicle convoy just for you to get from point A to point B. You could have all the wealth in the world. You could have, some people into social media. So some people may have 50 million followers on YouTube. Some people may have 50 million, this and that. But wallahi al-azim, there's no contentment in any of that. Where is contentment? Contentment is found in the heart. It's not found outwardly, right? It's not found like what we eat or what we think about. No, it's the place for contentment is the heart. And with what do we find contentment? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, He knows us best. Bizikrillah. Through the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we find contentment. The irony is we're looking for pleasure and happiness and joy and success as human beings that are constantly being invited towards ghayrillah, towards everyone and anything else besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're literally looking for contentment in the wrong places. And then we wonder why. Unfortunately, some people are taking uppers and downers. Some people are inhaling balloons. Some people are popping pills. Some people are rolling up joints. Just to numb some pain, finding contentment. But wallahi al-azim, I'm not sitting here as if I figured anything out. I'm just telling you what I've heard from my teachers and elders, is that wallahi al-azim, once you taste the love of Allah, that in itself is like something that's out of this world. Once you develop that love, and once you begin to feel that contentment in the heart from Allah Azza wa Jalla alone, there's nothing in this dunya that's going to come close to that, wallahi. Nothing. Once you experience that midhas, that sweetness of 2 rakats of salah, once you experience that sweetness of muraqabah of maut, you contemplating and reflecting of maut and how you're detaching yourself from all of this fake dunya that we live around ourselves, right? It's not our fault. We're just side note, if it's cold, we're gonna feel cold. If it's hot, we're gonna feel hot. So we shouldn't, beat ourselves up over oh my Allah, what should I know? If the environment is cold, we're gonna layer up. Relatively speaking, if the environment is calling us towards greatness of other things other than Allah, then we're also relatively speaking, we're gonna layer up as well. Nevertheless, 10 minutes already gone, you haven't even started yet. Nevertheless, I want everybody to use your good old imagination. Okay, remember when you were kids, we used to use our imagination a lot? So I'm going to ask y'all to go with me on this imaginary field trip, if you may. Okay, so just bear with me. Imagine there's a forest. A picture of a forest in your mind. This is a mental exercise. Imagine there's this vast forest, and in this forest you have all kinds of trees and shrubs and greenery. You got these massive trees, right? If you, for example, where I come from, we have these redwoods in California, they're literally called California redwoods. It takes 10 plus men to come together to hug one tree, it's ajib. And each of these trees are thousands of years old. And when you're looking up, your goalkeeper falls out how tall the tree is. I see one tree, right? So in this forest, you have these massive trees that Allah knows how long they've been around, and they're giving this kind of fruit, and some are not giving any kind of fruit. And then you have bushes, and then you have small trees, young trees, and you have saplings. Imagine imagine you have this massive tree. And right next to it, within an arm span, within a few feet or a meter, mashallah, units of measure out here, right? Within a meter's length, you have, next to this massive tree, you have a sapling, who's, relatively speaking, just a few weeks old. Hasn't seen nothing compared to our big tree over here. Hasn't seen nothing. So what happens? Nightfall. And then this wind begins to come through the forest. Now, the OG tree, if you know what I mean, if you know, you know, right? The OG tree knows like, hey, it's coming. It's about time, it's here. And the sapling tree is low-key tripping, like, yo, man, what's going on? Is everything cool? What's going on? So the older tree knows there's a storm coming. And this sapling never can't even smell what storm is. Like, man. Like, what is this? Like, what is this, like, this wind going through? So now the wind gets stronger and stronger, and the storm is developing, and like, you could hear the howls of this wind passing through different branches. It's getting stronger and stronger, and the old, forgive me, the OG tree, I'm just gonna say it, okay? Like, let's call him the OG tree, okay? So the OG tree, the older tree, like, he's experienced, Allah knows, hundreds if not thousands of storms. So he knows what to do. He knows what's up. But then the sapling didn't see nothing before. He's tripping out. He's like, whoa, what is this going on? So he's feeling that my roots are shaking now. Like, okay, if this is going to go on, I'm going to leave the chat. If you know, you know. If this continues to happen, the sapling is saying to himself, if this continues to go on at this progression, I'm going to leave the chat. So out of desperation, the sapling reaches out to Uncle Big Tree over here and says that, oh uncle, what's going on? And can you help a brother out? What's going on? And can you help a brother out? So the Uncle Tree, what he does, he's like, my young one, don't worry. So what the tree does, like, a few branches, and he basically protects and he basically just, covers up this sapling. And that the storm is intensifying. So in the middle of the storm, as it's intensifying, the older tree is now safeguarding and protecting the sapling, and the sapling, even with those branches over it of the older tree, is still shaking and is like nervous and doesn't know what's going on. There's a hadith that we find in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, I will tell you what happened after this towards the end, inshallah ta'ala. There's a hadith that we find that falls in line with this parable that I have allowed you to imagine so far. And this hadith is a beautiful hadith. We know every hadith is beautiful. We know that, mashallah. Every hadith is beautiful. Every verse of the Quran is absolutely beautiful. But in this context of this parable, it not only does it stand out, it jumps out. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لَيْسَ مِنَّا من لم يرحم صغيرنا ويوقر كبيرنا أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. The relationship that we found in this story of this parable of the older tree and this sapling is found in this hadith. What did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say? He said, أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, that person is not from amongst us. So let's call time out real quick. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is literally known to be rahmatul alameen. To give a simple example. For someone who is rahmatul alameen, who is literally known as the mercy for mankind, for that person to disown somebody, you done did it. To give an example, like perhaps we know one uncle, one auntie in our family, or like on the block or in the neighborhood, right? Where like that person like never gets mad. You know what I mean? Like somehow he keeps his cool. He keeps his, he's always like level-headed. But then you come to find out that, you did something that angered or got a reaction out of so-and-so person. That is known to be cool. That is known to be level-headed. It's similar to this. For someone to be known to be extremely merciful, kind, and gentle, and forgiving, and amazing in his character. SubhanAllah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's akhlaq and character, people would literally vouch for his character before him even becoming a prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Can you imagine? Everybody knew him. Everybody knew him. Like, it's not like he showed up one day like, okay, I'm Muhammad, Ibn Abdullah and Allah. No. He was from Makkah. People knew him. From his childhood days. He stood out from others even from his childhood days. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So, to continue, laysa minna. That person is not from amongst us. That's scary. Wallahi, I'm getting chills even sharing this. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam disowning. Laysa minna. Laysa minna. That person is not from our ummah. That person does not belong to in other words, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is saying, perhaps, if I may stretch it a little bit, that this person is not from my ummah. It is as if this so-and-so person is not from my ummah. Now he got our attention, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That person, man lam yarham saghirana. That person who does not show raham, that does not show mercy to those that are younger than us. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, our Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, such an amazing Nabi, Rasul, the final prophet, we love him so much, we always want to go to Medina and be there and just be in his presence. And you go to Makkah, you experience a different vibe, and we all know what kind of vibe we get when we're in Medina. The sukoon, the coolness. And especially if you experience rain in Medina, it's like a cherry on top. The last time I was there, it rained for like 30 minutes and like, gone, khalas. Ajib kayfiyya, ajib environment. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam disowning that individual that has no mercy for someone that is younger than him or her. But it doesn't end there. وَيُوَقِّرْ كَبِيرًا. And that individual that does not show reverence, that individual that does not show adab, does not show respect, does not revere kabirana, or elders. The reality is, respected brothers and sisters in Islam, is that regardless of who we are, regardless of our age, regardless of whichever phase of life we're all going through, every single one of us present here, regardless of whichever phase of life we're going through, we may be a student, we may be entering the workforce, we may be a business owner, it doesn't matter. Wallahi, it does not matter. But what matters is for us to recognize that if we don't check ourselves in the context of this hadith, that we're in huge trouble. Because what's true is that every single one of us either have people in our own family or within our social circle that are younger than us. Whether it's at school, college, uni, work, it doesn't matter. We come across people that are younger than us. And then at the same time, we always come across individuals that are older than us as well. So what I'm intending by sharing this component is I don't want those of us that believe that, okay, I'm a youth and I'm a youngster, for those of us to compartmentalize and walk out and say, okay, this is my scope, or this is my territory. Neither do we want our elders, as we say, we don't want our elders to also experience the same type of compartmentalization as well. But what's intentional, what I'm intending, is for us to, for every single one of us, regardless if we're young or old, for us to think about it both ways. If we could, inshallah, leave this evening, and we're able to, inshallah, have this added filter, if you may, an added mechanism in our thought process, that you know what, every single time I'm going to come across someone who's younger than me, it's as if, you know how we develop skills of communication, like when, for example, when you're much younger, you just say things without thinking, but then life catches up to you like, oh snaps, there's going to be consequences. And those consequences teach you that you can't be just saying whatever you want to whoever you want, and then you learn to create a degree of separation between thought and speech. Similarly, right, I don't have to break it down like that, you know, like, similarly, perhaps we can walk away this evening, inshallah, with a similar mechanism of development, that every time we find ourselves that we're interacting with somebody, for us to ask ourselves, from the prophetic lens of this hadith, this beautiful hadith. Because now you know. See, before this, we were living our lives the way we were. Okay? But now we know. And the fact that we know, now we have this knowledge, because this is a mulaqaba, now we know, now we are going to be responsible in Allah. Oh, sorry guys, I signed y'all up for this. But this is the reality. Every time you learn something, we become mukallaf. We become more mukallaf. We become more responsible. Don't let, for the sake of Allah, like Allah must it, don't let shaitan guilt trip you out of this. That's also a mark of shaitan as well. That hey, Yasir, don't go listen to the bayan because you're going to learn something and you're going to... Shaitan khabis is always learning, trying to come up with ways of creating separation between us and our Allah Azza wa Jalla. Another topic for another day. We find in the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam of how he, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, countless examples of him showing mercy to those that were younger than him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Countless examples. And then we also find countless examples of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam demonstrating reverence, adab, respect for elders as well. See, there was something, let me rephrase that, let me take it one step. What was it that allowed Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in simply a span of 23 years, 23 short years in the context of history, 23 years ain't nothing. Usually you see change, generational change. Usually you see change in historical context. You look at things in 100-year increments, 50-year increments. But 23 years, in the span of 23 years, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had a mu'jiza. This is not something I'm claiming, but you'll see where I'm going with this. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had an amazing miracle and mu'jiza that simply in the matter of 23 years, the same people, and wallahi, we love and revere our Sahaba, because loving and revering our Sahaba is part of our aqidah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from ever even looking towards even the thought process of, let alone, right? Let alone disrespecting or even bringing down the status of any Sahabi, to even lose any kind of hope or love or reverence of any Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Why is this part of literally our creed and aqidah? Is because in the span of 23 years, these individuals, with all due respect, again, wallah, this is my second attempt to even share this, because my attempt I'm not even trying to go down that path, but just to drive the point home, these were individuals that were not even considered human beings prior to Islam. If you read the historical records of other civilizations regarding our beloved Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in, they would not even consider them people to rule over. They were, in the eyes of society at the time, they were demoted from humans to subhumans. But 10, 23 years later, Allah Akbar. If nothing else, the fact that we love the Sahaba, and it's literally part of our Aqidah to have i'tiqad regarding our Sahaba, to have love for the Sahaba, we see it in the Quran, radiallahu anhum wa radu anhu, that love relationship that is found, that Allah loves the Sahaba and the Sahaba love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is 23 years of prophethood. And on a lighter note, the secret sauce, you know what I mean? What's that secret sauce of 23 years? What was that miracle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that transformed the people? His good character. His good character. SubhanAllah, I'm being reminded of a narration where we find these kind of incidents where individuals would approach Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with such harshness, and it was known about, and it is known about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam regarding the component that when somebody would approach Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with harshness, the more harsh that person would be, the softer he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would respond. In fact, and there's one narration I was just referring to a few seconds ago, this one individual grabs hold of the upper garment of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with such dramatic force, that we find that Sahaba have narrated that it left a mark on his beloved neck because of the way that individual grabbed Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But we also find in the same narrations narrating that incident for us to develop a picture in our minds that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, even being faced with that harshness, he would just melt and be as soft. So many examples of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam showing mercy to those younger than him, instructing others to have mercy towards those that are younger than him, not only himself, but doing the tarbiyah of the Sahaba and the Sahabiyat. Out of, running short of time, otherwise we will go through the examples. But why is it that we say, or we hear this concept of all the problems that we are facing in our society, the solutions to all of those problems are found in the Sunnah and the Seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Why do we hear this from our ulama, from our akabir, from our elders? Because it's true. It's just a matter of, we don't know. That's it. Just because I don't know how to navigate a situation according to the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, found in the Seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, does not mean the answer does not exist. And I'm saying this intentionally to create this degree of separation so that we understand that, hey, this is what I know and this is what I don't know. But one of the beautiful things regarding this beautiful hadith, that if generally I believe, and I don't have to say I believe, all of us would believe, that if the Muslim Ummah today somehow was able to bring this beautiful hadith into everyone's life, if everybody practiced on this component, if everyone showed a little bit more mercy towards those that were younger than them, and And at the same time, if everybody showed a little bit more level of respect and reverence to those that were older than them, we all would agree. I don't need to ask you that the world will change. The world will change because the world will see the akhlaqiyat of the Muslims. And we found that one of the reasons why, whenever the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they would travel throughout the world and they would see the akhlaqiyat and the character of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. There are many examples where the Sahaba went into a specific corner of the world, they literally would not be able to communicate with them in their language, but the fact that they had this amazing character, the people would be affected by them, and they would accept Islam. This propaganda that exists, that Islam was spread by the sword, and Islam was spread through force, and it's all propaganda. It's not even a sustainable argument. Islam was spread through love, muhabba, akhlaq, through demonstrating good akhlaq and all of these things. This hadith can be taken as a community builder, and for us to develop this balance in the community as well. To go back to the parable, storm is raging. So much so that let alone the sapling is shaking nervously that what is this? This sapling has never experienced a storm in its life. And now this older tree is now holding over this sapling, and he begins to, like, yo, this is bad. But then hey, what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created day and night. When the sun sets, it gets dark, the sun is going to rise again. In this, whenever we experience darkness in our lives, we feel sad, we feel hopeless, we feel like we're going into depression and life is not working out. I applied for a job for this many years and I'm not getting it, or I'm trying to resolve this issue of mine and it's just running into a wall over and over again, or this situation for no reason is stressing me out. Remember, when you're in a dark place, remember that the sun always rises the next day. There's always hope. We have to just somehow hold on. We have to hold on. So, just like the darkness of the night, just like everything else in life, and I'm not trying to undermine any trauma or the loss of a loved one or a closer death experience or anything that we've gone through. Wallahi, I'm not undermining or taking anything away from that. But in hindsight, and again in hindsight, we find a way to move on. So the storm subdues, and now it's Fajr time, and the sun begins to rise, and you see branches, that are falling down, and all of this chaos and everything is there, but at the end, the sapling survived, the older tree survived, but they each learned an important lesson. The sapling experienced the first storm of his life. And the sapling would not be able to survive that storm of his life if it wasn't for the support, the love of the elder in the community. And the older tree gets to live one more day in fulfilling its purpose. Fulfilling its purpose. Teaching this young sapling some wisdom. Oh my son, ya bunayya. Yes, this is a storm. Yes, it's hard. Yes, you got into an accident or something bad happened to you. Yes, but oh my son, I hate to put it to you, But this is one storm of many that you're going to see in your life. And you're going to have to stay strong. And my son, remember, just as Amru OG tree, Amru OG tree was there for you today, and you were able to survive, my son, you're going to have to pay it forward tomorrow as well. This is what a community is. When our elders and our youngsters are working together. That is what a successful community is. Where there's no polarity. The youngsters are running over the elders, and the elders are running over the youngsters. No, it doesn't work. Molana, it doesn't work. But what's that common denominator that's going to make it work? Ikhlas and love fillah. Which in other words is, if you may stretch it, ikhlas is in a form love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? To be sincere for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to ask ourselves, again, every single one of us needs to ask ourselves, which sapling, regardless, even if you're 15, 20 years old, even if you're looked at as a young man, doesn't matter, you still have saplings in your life that you are able to give back to. Even if you're 35, even if you're 40, you're still young, mashallah, you need to identify a sapling in your life. So every single one of us, if we haven't already, we need to identify which is that sapling that we're going to show them extra love and affection. Maybe it's that sapling that is coming from a broken home. Maybe it's that sapling that is being attracted towards drugs. Maybe it's that sapling that is being peer pressured into haram, or is continuing to just fall into this trap of haram. At the same time, which older tree am I going to hold on to for wisdom as well? Which elder in the community am I going to love, show more love and more respect towards? This is, you could say, the sabak or the exercise from this short mudhakara. I know it's not short, it's like 40 minutes already, I know that. Trust me, there's so much more to say, but subhanAllah, we can even go into examples of the life of, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, okay, elders and youngsters, but for the sake of everyone's time, I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to walk away with this added mechanism of realization of coming from love, lillah, for the pleasure of Allah. How can I empower and support and show extra love to a family in the community, and at the same time, how can I allow myself to get closer to an elder so that elder can spill his wisdom into me as well, so that I can be wiser than I was yesterday. It's gonna be done through love. It's not gonna be done through like incentives of some incentives. No, it has to be done for the pleasure of Allah. It has to be done because of love. If it's not going to come from a place of love, then you're going to see sparks flying. You're going to see fuses tripping. Like people literally tripping. It's not going to work. It has to be out of love. So to digress just for a few moments, I come from California, born and raised there. And I work at an organization called Al-Misbah, and Allah allows us to do various things. We have 5 departments. I'm not going to bore you